Hey guys, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And it's Thursday, so it's time for our regular weekly YouTube live here on the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel. So I want to welcome you today. If this is your first time to come hang out with us on a Thursday, I want to welcome you and I appreciate you coming. If you have been coming regularly, and I know a lot of you guys have, I really appreciate your support and I welcome you back. Hey, Donna. Donna's here from Raleigh. And oh, yes, guys, it is raining here today. We are actually getting remnants of Sally, although where I am, no worries. We're just getting a lot of rain. But I have been thinking about those who have been all along the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, all along where that storm is coming through, because it's definitely, they've had some really tough times down with all the storms lately. So I hope everybody's doing well. Hey, Mary Jane she's from Pennsylvania. Yay! Rolly English Weaver. Hey, from Austin, Texas. We've got Deb back from Nebraska. Hey, Diane from Charlotte. It's your first time. Well, welcome, Diane. Oh, here's a little trivia fact for you, Diane. I grew up just down the road in Concord, right outside of Charlotte. Hey, Sarah from Ontario, Canada. So you've got beautiful weather today. Wonderful, wonderful. We're actually very lucky. Again, the heat is really broken here, so we are fortunate with that at least. And hey, Catherine from West Tennessee. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm so glad you guys are here. And for those of you who are new, just know you are welcome to put comments in the section if you have put a comment in the comment section if you want to. I do see those pop up on my screen, and I can answer questions as we go. So feel free to pop those down there. I'm happy to keep up with those and watch for questions that come from you guys, because I like to know things that you're interested in, as well as I learned from you guys as well. So feel free to do that. Before we start getting into our topic today, I just want to share a couple things. So probably starting in October, I am going to restart kind of an email series that I do in the fall for genealogy bargains, because usually, October, as we're starting to head into that fourth quarter of businessy things, you'll start to see a lot more sales coming up in prep for the holiday season. I know, don't shoot the messenger here, but I see some really good things that come across my desk and through my email, and so I wanted to share them with you. So I'm actually going to pop that into the comment section here, guys. And if you are listening to this on replay, it will be in the description below here. So if you're interested in receiving a weekly email on just the genealogy bargains that I've been seeing, so this is different than the Monday email, but just this will be focused simply on bargains that I'm seeing, DNA kits, books, any kind of thing that genealogy researchers might be interested in. I usually try to send that out just simply to help you. And as you guys know, I'm a very, very frugal genealogy researcher. And so I tend to use the sales that come up to get things, not just for gifts, which I certainly do, but also to replenish any supplies that I need, or if there's a purchase that I have coming up. I usually wait until this time of year to see what kind of sales are coming on. So you can go there, you can sign up for that, guys. And truly, it'll come out probably every Thursday. Maybe it might be on Friday. I haven't decided yet, but it will be just once a week, and it is separate than just the regular ones that I do on Mondays for you guys. So, hey, Karen, Western North Carolina mountains, beautiful time of year to be in the mountains. Catherine, oh, wonderful. So Catherine said she has Wilson ancestors from Charlotte area. That's right. Catherine had some questions about that, which would probably be my apologies, guys. I broke the cardinal roll. I forgot to turn off my cell phone. Sorry about that. Let's take care of that right now. Anyway, so there we have it. Yes, so sign up for that if you want to get bargains, hear about bargains that come along. So today, what are we here for? We are here. I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite new books that have been on my bookcase lately for genealogy. And so I have 3 that I'm going to share today. And then I'll share some more next week, because I seem to have more books, I guess, than usual. These, I will have to tell you, just in full disclosure, 2 of the 3 books were gifted to me from the genealogical publishers. So they were gifted for me, and I am an affiliate for them, just to let you guys know. But everything I tell you about these books is completely my own opinion. So I'm going to get started with that as you go. And these also make really great Christmas gifts, just FYI. So the first one I want to talk to you about is, let me see if I can get this in the camera right. Oh, there we go. Locating Your Roots, Discover Your Ancestors Using Land Records by Patricia Hatcher. Now this book, so we can get a better view of it there for you. This is a really fantastic book, guys, and I wish it had been around when I was actually doing early research into the land records, because I was definitely I struggled with that early on in my research, and I'm going to pop that link in there for you too. So what I absolutely loved about Patricia's book, and why I like to keep it on my bookshelf at large, is one of my favorite sections has to do with what she calls first transfer, or how land, the first got to its first owner, because that system was very different when the country was starting out. So how the land went from being owned by the crown to individuals, and how that process went, because it changed over time, as we know, and it changed, and it was different, because it was very different than in New England compared to what was happening down in the southern states, compared to what later was happening in, as they went out west with more of the federal lands. And so there are a lot of different nuances there that I didn't know. I was familiar with what's happening with grants and proprietors, because that's what we have here in North Carolina. So that system I could work in. But when my ancestor went to New England, or maybe moved further west, I struggled a bit and didn't know that. So I loved how it was very detailed, very easy to follow in her book, to lay that out for me. She does a nice section on bounty lands as well. One of the other things that I really liked in her book, that I really kind of wish I had starting out early on, just really clear descriptions of deeds and what you can find, and why you might find deeds in one place, or they might be, or the land record might be in a different place, and how to find those different records, and how to prepare for that research trip before you go, because everybody's strapped for time. So that was a really good and helpful book that I still keep on my bookshelf, because when I research in areas where the land transfers and process was different than, say, in North Carolina and Virginia, where I'm so used to it, then I can pull that off, and I can take a quick look in there, and I can learn what I need to know, and where the records are, and what types of records were generated. It's very hard to look for records when you don't know what actually was being generated, and that's what I really found helpful with her book. All right, hang on, I had a couple things come through here. Lisa, please review finding books that are browsable, and how to browse versus those that need to be ordered, or me to go to the closest library. Okay, so some books will be online. You might find these some at like your local public library. You can always ask your library. You can make recommendations to your library about books that you might be interested in, and them having, Lee. That is actually something my library has encouraged, and I have done. So, and then I've actually had them buy books that I have recommended. I think if enough people do, or if it's part of a collection they're trying to fill out that they don't feel like they have enough of. So in the case of genealogy books, actually, that is something that they're open to at my library. So that is absolutely a way to do it, because these are not online, guys, just so you know. But you can find them in the bookstores. You can find them at genealogical publishers. And watch, guys, because they do put these on sale. They do have sales periodically, so watch that as you go. If that's something that you could be interested in. Again, I'm a frugal genealogy researcher, so I always wait. I might find it, and then I'm going to wait for a sale. I'm not going to buy it at full price. That's just how I am. Okay. So the next book that I loved, that I really absolutely was thrilled to have, is the How to Find Your Family History in U.S. Church Records. Now, this is by Sonny Morton and Harold Henderson. And Sonny's actually a friend of mine, a genealogy buddy of mine. We meet up at the conferences. We've met each other. I think we met each other in Ohio and NGS there. Just saw her recently, this past February at Roots Tax. So it's always fun to be able to have a chance to catch up with her. church records. You guys hear me talk a lot about church records because, particularly when we're researching our female ancestors, because oftentimes that's where you're going to find evidence of your ancestor. Or if the courthouse is burned, if the county records have been destroyed or large majority, then you have to look outside of the county records and look at more what I call community records and church records. I kind of lump those into community records because they're part of the community. And so that's an important piece of the puzzle to look at. Now, the problem comes in, or it's not really a problem, I should call it more of a challenge, is to know where to find the church records or what church records are available. Really, or even back down at a very basic level, what faith was your ancestor? What church would they have gone to? So Sonny and Harold absolutely have in the beginning, they have a really good, just the first few chapters of how to use church records, what types of records you can find, how to determine what church your ancestor may have gone to or what faith. That's a really good, helpful guide at the beginning. So absolutely, I love that part of it. But I have to tell you what my favorite part is. My favorite part is actually the second section of the book, which outlines information on a variety of denominations or types of church. So they talk about, let me just pull up the Methodists versus the Mennonites versus the Lutheran versus the Catholics versus Quaker religious records. So all of those, and they go on and they get very in depth about the history of the church, how denomination may have changed, if there were any splits in the church, what types of records those churches actually kept, and what are worth pursuing as genealogy researchers. There's nothing worse than trying to pursue a record in a church record that particular denomination never created in the first place, they never kept, and then you're stuck going, I can't find it, they must not have had it. Well, you've wasted a lot of time looking for a record that never existed in the first place. So that to me is very helpful. Predominantly, the ancestors that I research tend to be Baptist, Methodist, Primitive Baptist, what we call primitive or hardshell Baptist in the South. But those can be difficult to actually research. So when I go to research someone else's, whether it's a client or whether it's friends, or if I'm helping somebody out and I'm researching, and all of a sudden, well, we're in the Congregationalist records. That's not a record set that I know very well. I don't know what they created. I don't know much about that particular religion or faith. And so that's where I have a really handy dandy reference right here in the book. And this is how I use their book, is to be able to do that. And you can see, I actually have it labeled because this is the section where I have it bookmarked. This is where it talks about the WPA Church Inventory. So the Works Progress Administration back in the 1930s and 40s hired workers to, they would index and record historical records. So part of it was church records. They would do church records. And one of the things that has been helpful with that is that, for instance, they will tell you what, for your state that you're researching, it tells you what the name of their reports are, so that you can then go and find their books that they wrote, that the WPA did, those records that you can come up with. So that's a really important way to be able to find the church records. So for instance, I'm sitting here looking at, the state of Michigan, for instance. They did an inventory of church archives of Michigan for several denominations that is actually digitized at HathiTrust. So it tells you where these books are and where these records are and where they're digitized at. So that's a real helpful. These are like indexes so that you could then go find the records that you need. Very helpful with that, definitely. And you guys know I love church records because that's where you find, I always call it the good stuff, but that's where you find the women. A lot of times you find the women's in that, looking at, they were Sunday school teachers in some denominations. They were, you know, the church women's groups, the charity groups, those types of things, the missionary groups, taking care of the poor, and those, they will be documented in some of the church records. So that's why I'm all about church records. So, oh, hang on, I didn't give you that link. I'll give you that link too. And again, now this is a fairly new book. I don't know that you would find it in a library, but again, I don't, you know, if it's something you're interested in, you can either publish, you know, purchase it or request and see if the libraries are doing some. If you have genealogy focused libraries in your county, you might find that book there as well. So just so you know. Hey, Martha. Martha's from Ohio, and we got Bridget. Oh, Bridget, I missed you. You came in, you popped in there from Maine. So good to have you. Good to have you. Okay, now this next book, guys. Now this is just plain old good reading book. So it is, you may have heard me talk about this a bit before. So this is actually, I actually purchased this one myself. This is a Bintal Brief, and I purchased it from the Tenement Museum bookstore up in New York on the Lower East Side. And this is just a fabulous book, and it's an example of the types of books I like to keep on my bookshelf. So what it is letters that immigrants wrote to the Jewish Daily Forward, which was a newspaper up in New York. And these were the letters that they wrote to the editor. And they basically were advice. It was an advice column, essentially. So they would write in, and these tended to be Eastern European Jewish immigrants. And they would ask questions. They would talk about things they didn't understand. They would ask, what do I do? There was one I was reading just before I started, and it was a woman who talked about, you know, here she was in New York. She had the 3 children. Her husband had deserted her. They had, you know, and that she'd only been in the country for about 4 months, and the Jewish relief societies were not helping her. And what could she do? How could she either find her husband, or how could she find help to be able to survive? So, and then the editor then goes and answers each of the letters back. So this covers about 60 years, I think, of letters. So it's a really unique look inside an immigrant's life. Now, they don't actually have the specific names, and I noticed they took out some, you know, they just used initials, or they took the name out. So that was a little disappointing. I was hoping to find some names, always, but, you know, I'm sure if I read the original newspaper, I'd find it. But what I get from that is context, social history, and you guys know that's a big thing for me. But it helps me to understand when I am researching the Jewish immigrants on my husband's side. It helps me to understand what was going on at that moment in time. What were they dealing with, and how could that have impacted decisions that they made to either stay or to leave? Did it influence their type of occupation? I did not know it. It helped me to understand what their goals were, whether it was to stay in the Lower East Side, whether it was to move to a different area such as Brooklyn. So that's what I love to read about books like this. These are important books to read because it gives you that. Now, while they're not specific names, they are dated. So I can go to the dates that pertain to my ancestor to see what types of things might have been going on at that particular time. And it's a really interesting and valuable insight into what your ancestors may have been going through. So this book, the Bintal Brief, I'll pop it into the comments. It is written, and it is about the Eastern European Jewish immigrant to New York. But there are other types of books that are out there, anything that tells the story. So for instance, one of the ones I actually really enjoy, okay, there's that book. It's called, let me see if I see it on my bookshelf. I know it's there. Okay, I'm not seeing it, but I know it's there. There it is. It's called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And that was actually the book that my daughter's university used for their summer reading. And I got hold of it, and I'm like, I bought my own copy of it. And I think there's even been a movie made out of it. But when you read that story, there's a lot of medical ethics in it, which is not necessarily genealogically related, obviously, but they talk a lot about Henrietta's upbringing. They talk a lot about she grew up, and turns out she grew up in the area where my ancestors lived. And so I was able to get an insight into what her life was like, which was very different because she was African American as opposed to my ancestors. And then in the back were all the sources and citations that the author used. And I found so many sources for information to learn more about that community and the Halifax County, Virginia community, South Boston, Cluster Springs, and all that. I just had this incredible source of resources I never even knew to look for or how to look for them. So it was a very interesting book. It gave me a lot of social context, gave me in all kinds of ways, from the African American point of view, as well as from just straight up tobacco farmers in that part of the area, So those are the types of books I like to keep on hand and I like to read about. Even though they don't talk about my specific ancestors, I get so much from them and I get that perspective, which I truly value. All right, let me see. Oh, hey, Dave, you're here again today. Yay, I'm glad you're here. Hey, Phil is from Michigan. We've got Marlene from Phoenix and Aaron Lee from Idaho. Yay, we are from all over the place today, guys. I think that's fabulous. So those are 3 of my favorite books. They are my go-to books that I have. I've been particularly using that church book and some research I've been doing because I've been so heavily into researching female ancestors on all sides of my family that I do find that one very helpful as I move from denomination to denomination. I think when we research, and I probably sound like a broken record with this, but when it comes to whether it's record collections we're looking for, whether it's books, whatever, if something was important to our ancestors, then it is absolutely important to you as the researcher. And therefore, it is important that we learn about that particular record set that could have been generated by that. So that's exactly why, I have books that don't necessarily have my ancestors in them, but these are issues that were important to my ancestors, and therefore they're books I'm going to keep so I can learn. So if you guys have favorite books, pop them into the comment section. I'd love to know what your favorite books are. I'd be curious if any of you guys have used any of these books, or if you have others that are out there for research, because I know there are tons of books, and genealogists love books above everything else, I think. Us, we are just we're just book lovers. What can I say? So it's a lot of fun. I do find myself actually a lot of times at night reading, and then I find myself reading after I've researched all day, and then I find myself reading these history books. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to read something a little different now, and so I'll go off and find something else to read. But I just enjoy looking at them and getting that perspective of what's out there and what's going on. So anyway, I would encourage you to, again, check your libraries for these. You can watch, if you want to purchase it, watch for coupons and sales, because those are running frequently and definitely coming up in the next few months with the holidays and stuff like that. Lee said, is there a repository for family letters which we can contribute to? Lee, I don't know. Does anybody have any ideas about that? Probably what now, Lee, I would probably check the state archives for the state that these letters might pertain to see if they want copy them or digitize them. I can't talk today, guys. Digitize them, or maybe a local museum or historical society might be the best way to go about that. You could even check universities. So, for instance, if you have letters, the one that just comes off the top of my head would be if you have letters that pertain to life in the South. It was written by a family who lived in the South, and it has, pertains to life around Southern type things. Then the Documenting the South collection out of UNC Chapel Hill might be a place to reach out to and say, hey, would you be interested? Is this the type of thing you'd be interested in? I do know that, like, say, archives with family Bibles will often do that. They'll ask if they can digitize the family Bibles and have those up online too. So I would reach out to those folks and see what they would say, Lee. They also, I think the archives or like a historical society, they might know people, they might know who best for that area would be receptive to those items. Mary Jane says, have any fun mysteries with genealogy? Oh, there are. Dylan, good. Hang on, guys. Let me check, because there is. In fact, he was at Roots Tech this year. Dylan Goodwin. He's English, I think. Dylan. Okay. Oh, okay. It's yes. So his name is Nathan Dylan Goodwin. I'm going to pop that into the well, hang on. Let me see if I can grab that. Nathan Dylan Goodwin. Yeah, there we go. I will copy that and get that right into the group so you guys can look at his. He writes, I have yet to read his. I want to. They're on my list of things to read. But he is an author, and he writes, it's a series, and he writes they're mysteries, but they're based on genealogy type things, or he uses genealogy to solve the mysteries. They're very, very popular at Roots Tech and stuff. He had a booth there, and he's a really nice guy. So yeah, you might want to check those out if you want something just a little different that's not necessarily research oriented. That might be interesting to you. Let's see, Kathy said the biographical books of the late 1800s are found on Google Books. Absolutely, guys. So what she's talking about is that just like their family histories, people write their own family histories today. Well, they were doing that back in the 1800s. And the wonderful thing for us is that many of them are at Google Books, and they are in the public domain. So you can check out Google Books for those types of histories. They really are fascinating reading when you're trying to get a perspective on an ancestor as well. What I like in going to those is that you find the family histories on Google Books are oftentimes written by people who had firsthand knowledge of some of the folks who lived in the 1800s. So whereas we don't necessarily have that, we're going through the records. I actually was using a book one time, and the guy actually said, this is from personal knowledge of knowing so-and-so for so many years. And I was like, oh, wow, because, I could never pick that up from the records. So that was a good thing. But you're absolutely right, Kathy. That's a great one. Ginger says, hello from Smoky, Colorado. Oh, I hope you're doing okay, guys, out there with all those fires. Thanks so much for the recommendations. Put 2 of the recommended books on hold at the local library. Wonderful. Yay. I'm glad they have it. Donna likes the new pocket guide to Irish genealogy. Okay, you know what? That's actually for next time. I'm going to show that one next week, Donna. It is fabulous. Yeah, it's not it's amazing. It's pocket guide. Sometimes we think it's small and maybe not as much, but it's a really good resource. Absolutely, if you have Irish ancestry with that. Deb likes abbreviations, acronyms by Kip Sperry and the Red Book American States. Yes. So I haven't seen that abbreviations and acronyms, so I'm going to check that one out though, because I think that sounds like something I need. The Red Book American State, Town, and County State Sources by Alice Eckholtz. That's a really good one too. I think that those are on Ancestry.com actually, guys, if you have a subscription there. And she's asking if anybody's used AniMap software. I am not familiar with that, so I don't know if anybody's used that or not. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. If you have, pop that in. Catherine said M.G. Lee's Jane Sinclair Genealogical Mystery Series is a good one. Oh, wonderful. I'm glad you mentioned that one. And Steve Robinson's Jefferson Tate, T-A-Y-T-E series. Oh, there are a lot more out there than I realized. Obviously, I have some reading to do. Oh, bye, Mary Jane. Thanks for coming. So obviously, I have some reading to do because there are some things out there that I am not as aware of when it comes to those fun genealogical mysteries, definitely. So anyway, guys, that's I wanted to share those books with you. Again, just to be completely transparent, I did get gifted 2 of those books from genealogical publishers, and I am an affiliate for them. So but everything I said about them is really my own opinion. So just want to let that know, but I want that to be very clear for you guys. If you are watching a replay, I'll have links to those books in the description below. And I am super thrilled that you guys shared with some new to me books as well. And I look forward to kind of checking those out as well. So I will see you next week right here. I've got more books to go with. I have 3 more books that I absolutely love. It's been a good year. I don't typically get a lot of new books in the year, but this time I did. This year I have. And so I think with COVID, it's been really nice to have those at my fingertips. So I look forward to talking to you next week. In the meantime, feel free to share this video with any friends or hop over to the website and just take a look around and see what's over there. I'll talk to you next week, guys. Bye.